All right, we're live. The men of action are back. You know, you
Woo.
guys didn't ask for it, and here we are.
And we could tell by
I-
the numbers.
oh my God. Terrible. Terrible.
I'm
That
bringing your
actually kind
channel
of made it
down.
funnier. It's almost like I, you know, got a whole audience together that didn't give a shit about this kind of show, and I did it anyway. It's almost like that.
I love that. That's what
Yeah.
that's everything I stand for. Oh, you
Yeah.
don't want this? That's what I'm going to give you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad
It's like,
to be here, and I'm glad to drag your channel down. That's
yeah,
my goal.
you're You're honored to be a part of the biggest failure I've ever had.
And I
Nah,
don't take
whatever,
it
man.
personally.
I'm just here to talk fucking movies with you and have a good time. And if like one or two people show up, look, we got one person right now. There we go. We're good. It's
Oh, we're on. We're in.
probably my wife.
Well, it is midday, midweek. So I
Yeah,
mean, I can't fault people.
midday, more like 9 a.m.
Yeah, your time. Midday,
Yeah.
my time.
Yeah. So my East Coasters, it's noon. My West Coasters, it's early. All right, Hobbs here. Universal Soldier. I'm not the one who picked. I think that if I would have picked a Van Damme movie to talk about, I probably would have done something obvious like Bloodsport, only because I've seen it 6 trillion times. But I'm so glad you picked this.
Everybody talks about Bloodsport. Like that would have been my number one choice as well. So I love Bloodsport and I love this. And don't get me wrong, there are other Van Damme movies I enjoy as well, but those would be my top two.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Van Damme, so like every time he made a movie, it was like a big deal. And I just remember they always had to double things up with him, whether it was Double Impact or
Double
what was
Team.
the other one? Double Team with friggin' Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
So funny.
Even Double Impact is fun. Like but this is when Hard Target kind of is when he was on top of his game. He had built this, like Universal kind of got him more in the mainstream action star. And it was this. And I think Time Cop, he was actually the number one box office draw when that was released, which was the next one. Or Sudden Death. I mean, I'm kind of getting some of the timelines mixed up. And I like Sudden Death as well. That's another one that if you haven't watched in a while, revisit. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I watched it within the last year or two. I showed my wife a few Van Damme movies. I think I showed her like Universal Soldier, Sudden Impact, Kickboxer, Bloodsport, Time Cop.
I'm actually not a fan of Time Cop or Universal Soldier. They're watchable, but I'm not. Those ones I actually can do without. I enjoy like Bloodsport. Lionheart is another great one.
Yeah, I showed her Lionheart.
Yeah.
Wrong bet. I think that's kind of wild that you don't like Universal Soldier. Huh. Okay. I could see the other. Oh, I showed her Cyborg, of course. That's a fun one. I love that one. Best villain. Ooh, Death Warrant.
Death Warrant.
He does have a lot of guys. It's funny. Initially, when someone asked here who the best villain is, like my instant reaction in my head was Dolph Lundgren in Universal. But now I'm like thinking about it between like Tong Klo, Chong Li.
Yeah.
There's so many. Yeah, the Sandman. What's his name? In Cyborg, it's like not Bennett.
That's Commando.
Bender.
I am the worst.
Bender, right? Isn't it Bender?
Man, you're good. I honestly couldn't even tell you. I will just be forward. If you didn't know this about me already, I am horrible with character names. So you're on your own there.
Hey, my wife is here. Hello. This is her favorite line from Death Warrant. I don't pay, I don't punk. That's a funny ass line, dude. When his cellmate is trying to get him to like suck his dick.
I love how they always make him French. like whether it be French Canadian or French, like I don't know why they couldn't like just say where he was from, but he's always French in these movies.
Yeah, he's always French. I think at least in this one, and we're gonna get into it because we need to jump into this one early. Last time we talked for way too long before we got to the movie, but like actually we'll just save it. We'll save it for that because I'll get to it. We're gonna stay on track here. We're gonna do a much better episode this time. Couldn't get worse, so that's a guarantee.
What a dick. It's something he's never heard.
Truth. So yeah, I mean, as far as Van Damme goes, I grew up with him. I watched, I'd say Bloodsport is probably the one I watched the most.
I saw that in the theater.
You know, his like filmography up until he started doing the like straight to DVD shit, which I've seen some of those, right? Like I saw the JVCD where he plays himself and he's like down on his luck and he can't get gigs anymore. And I never did watch the TV series that he did, Jean-Claude Van something, like I can't remember. I never watched it. Did you watch that?
No, I thought you were going to deep dive like with Legionnaire and all those ones. Like there's like
those are later. Those are like right at the like tail end of his like Hollywood days, and then he got into like doing a lot of like the Universal Soldier knockoffs, like you know, The Return and like Day of Reckoning, I think is another one, and he's made quite a few Universal Soldiers at this point that he always shows up in it as at least like a smaller role.
Well, the Kickboxer.
But then I have a fuck ton of his movies. There's one that people really like that I haven't seen and I do own. I actually have like a steel book of it. I didn't even mean to get it, but I like ordered it off eBay and it like has a steel book and I was like, oh, this is a much nicer copy than I was expecting. Is this movie called In Hell, where he's like once again, it's kind of like Death Warrant, where he's like in prison and he starts you know, doing fighting within prison, kind of like the Undisputed movies,
which I was going to bring up because we're talking about Scott Adkins too, which those Undisputed movies, they just get better. I love all four of them. 2, 3, and 4
is a fantastic trilogy. The Boyka trilogy is fucking great.
Yeah.
The first one,
a bad guy, and then you start cheering for him. That's the best thing.
by Boyka, you're like trying to get him out of prison. You're like, hell yeah. The first one, if I remember correctly, I think the first one is supposed to be based off of Tyson when he went to prison.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
I think that's what that was, because you're at Ving Rhames, right? It's Ving Rhames and it's somebody else, and like he's like the big fighter in the world, and he gets sent to prison like Tyson. So it makes sense that if that's what that was, but yeah, a lot of these prison movies. But I don't know, man. I really love Van Damme's movies as much as like he's the same character in every film. You never saw JVCD?
I did. I saw that one. I mean, that's the thing about him. All of these action stars are really the same character in every film. Even the top notch, like even the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers, really, for the most part.
Everyone but Stallone. I think Stallone, he has a lot of range. I think he's the best like big action star actor, because like Rambo is wildly different from Rocky to me.
True.
Like, they're not even similar characters.
And then every other action movie, this thing he did is like an offshoot of Rambo. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he has some amazing range to him. I think at the end of First Blood, when he's crying about the war and freaking out, I think that's actually like really gut wrenching. And you know, here's another thing, and this I think this will be a good segue to get into the film, because I don't think Van Damme. Okay, I think when it comes to action stars, people rate them against like a Daniel Day-Lewis or something when it comes to acting. And for me, I think that someone like Arnold or Stallone or even Van Damme, but especially those former two, they're much better actors than people think that they are. I've watched a lot of like
Sure.
low budget shit. I've watched a
Oh.
lot of like lame action movies or people. So like they know how to
Same.
be action
Same.
heroes, right? Like that's not easy to do. And if you watch something like True Lies, only Arnold could do that movie, right? So like they're very good at what they do. And I really like, I hate that people look at like Arnold and think like he's a bad actor. And it's like, no, he just doesn't have a lot of range, but he's really fucking good at what he does.
True.
And I
No,
think
I don't disagree.
Van Damme is also someone who's like, is his acting good? No, especially in Bloodsport and Kickboxer and those early ones. He's really fucking rough, but he still sells the tough guy. He still has the charisma, the charm. You still like him. He's still very likable. He's still very, even though I hate to bring this up, but even though, if you remember, do you remember this? Because you're at the same age as I am. Do you remember when it was like, when it was there was a lot of speculation and there was a lot of like focus on that he was like beating his wife?
Oh,
Like,
no, my understanding was I thought he got into heroin and drugs and his career just kind of sank after that. But no, I didn't even
there's
know
some
about.
domestic abuse shit going on, to my memory. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I remember him having a kind of a tumultuous time where he was accused of getting a little too handsy with his ladies, which that's always had a stain on my mind with him. And I hope that's not true. I hope that I can look that up and you know, I should Google that and see if those accusations ever were, you know, seen as true or as just bullshit or whatever. Cause that's always kind of stuck out in my mind every time I watch him since. I've always thought of like, yeah, you're a cool guy, but are you? Like, that's not cool.
The worst actor in my mind of all the, when you think of the big sort of action stars, is Steven Seagal. Like he literally he's the one that plays the same fucking character in every goddamn movie. It's because he doesn't even seem to care. Like,
no, he doesn't give a fuck, dude. He really doesn't care.
But
I'm looking it up right now. We got someone in the comments that says they don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember that either, to be honest. But yeah, I just remember like Maximum Risk. It was like Nowhere to Run, Maximum Risk, Double Team, and then it seems like he kind of disappeared. That was kind of the tail end of his, you know, theatrical run and whatnot. And I think he directed The Quest, I think in '96. I think that was like when it started to turn, but he was still getting a couple of roles because he got The Quest because of the box office draw that was Time Cop and whatnot before it. But then he's sort of like the latter part of the 90s is where his career kind of went direct to video. Are you finding it?
There's something where, not really. There's people accusing him of assault and domestic abuse on his bodyguard and his wife's boyfriend and stuff like that. But
well, his wife's boyfriend, I can understand.
Sure.
I remember Chuck Zito. Do you remember the Chuck Zito incident? Like supposedly Chuck Zito met him in a bar, and I guess it was like
that's the wife's boyfriend.
That's what it was. Well, Chuck Zito knocked Jean-Claude Van Damme out, is the rumor. One punch gone, type thing.
Again, yeah, I mean, hit someone without them knowing it's coming, they can fucking destroy you. Yeah, Steven Seagal is not even worth our fucking breath, dude. That guy's awful. I did love Under Siege growing up, I will admit. I think that's a really good movie, mostly because Tommy Lee Jones is a fucking nutcase in that movie. But you know, and I grew up on those. I grew up on like Hard to Kill.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Murder.
Above the Law, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice. Those are the first four.
For Death, Out for Justice. Under Siege is his best movie for me, easy.
Yeah.
Easily.
And I saw part 2 in the theater, and I thought
I did too. I did too. You know, it's funny. This is actually one of my favorite stories of like theater experiences. Um, but we flew out to Seattle to see family, like extended family. And I don't know what year it came out. So 10 to 13, somewhere in that area. I can't remember exactly. And we got there and it was like this really small little town. And we were just bored. Like we were there for my dad's wife's family. And we didn't know anybody and we didn't like have any interest in being there. And we were just kind of hanging out. We were there for days. And we were like, oh my God, is there any fucking thing to do in this town? And they were like, well, we have a movie theater. And we were like, you have a movie theater? Like it was kind of crazy because it's like the smallest town you can imagine. And I was like, you have a fucking movie theater? How? You have like 10 people. And so they were like, yeah, you know, we have a movie theater. So we checked the paper and they had Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. And we were like, oh shit, like the new Under Siege. I was a big fan of the first one. So I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So no, I was older. I actually remember now. I think I was 14. That actually makes sense. Okay. I was like 14. So it must have come out in 1996. Someone fact check that, but I should be 13, 14, somewhere in that area.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
95, 96.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so we drive down and we're like, we get into the parking lot where it is. Cause people, you know, back then there was no Google Maps. There was no freaking, GPS, nothing. It's like, this was like the old days where people just gave you those like vague directions where they're like, all right, you go down this road until you see a tree that kind of looks like it's leaning to the left. You're like, and you make a left on this dirt road that's right next to that tree. And then you go down until you hit this like rock that kind of looks like it's pointing. And you're like looking for shit. It's in the night. And you're like, is that tree leaning or is it?
Is that rock pointing?
Oh my God.
I can't tell.
those kind of directions. So we got those kinds of directions, right? And we get there and we get into the parking lot and there's like, all there is like a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven type place. I don't know what your convenience stores are out there.
We have 7-Eleven as well, but we've got, you know, a lot of mom and pop ones as well.
Okay. So we get in the theater, we get into the parking lot, we walk in and we're like, we were told there's a theater around here. Do you know where it's at? And they were like, yeah, you're in it. I was like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, this is the theater. And we're like, wait. And we're looking around, there's like a Slurpee machine and stuff. And we're like, what? And they're like, how many tickets do you want? We're like, 2. And we're like, okay. And so we buy the 2 tickets and they're like, it's behind that door. And so we walk in, there's like fucking, I think 8 seats. And the TV is no bigger than my television.
Like the screen,
but it's like a projector onto a screen that's like 65.
Where you can hear it, rolling because it sounds like it's in the same room as you.
Because the guy was sitting next to me turning the crank. That's basically what it was. And we walked in and we started like the place was packed. Every seat was sold out except for our 2. And I was like, we walked in and we started laughing and everyone kind of looked back at us like fucking city people. Like this is the best we got. Welcome to our living room inside a Circle K. I was just like, what is this place? Jesus Christ. Anyway. Executive Decision. It's been a long time since I've seen that. Isn't it they go to get on the plane and it's like really shocking because like they all die.
He opens that hatch and then he goes, whoop, and he gets sucked right out or something like that. I remember
hilarious.
Going, what the fuck? And it's the best. He's right.
That was when like there was a lot of plane movies at that time, whether it was Air Force One, Turbulence, Executive Decision. Everything was taking place in planes in the sky for some reason. Yeah. Was that post 9/11? No, that was the 90s. That was the 90s. Yeah. Turbulence. I don't know. There was an obsession with planes for some reason.
Lauren Holly and
Turbulence. Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta. I can't believe I forgot his name, but yeah, and Lauren Holly.
I've actually
Lauren
seen.
Holly is amazing.
I think I'm one of the only
Not
people
actress.
on
Not a
earth
good actress.
that has seen all 3 Turbulence movies.
Yeah, I was shocked to learn that there's like 2 other ones. To be honest,
Yeah.
I couldn't
You
even be
have
more. I didn't even realize there was 4 Bloodsport movies or more.
I think there's uh
I had no clue.
there's at least 4. There's a lot. There's a lot of like kickboxers.
Oh, well, he
Like
came
Tom
back.
Poe is like
So
the main
they
guy.
did like 2 or 3 sequels without him, and then he came back for the 2, and those 2 were actually quite good. They came out like 10 years ago. Those ones, and then stay with Hard Target. I didn't know there was a sequel made in 2016 until I think 3-4 years ago.
Oh, I knew about it only because I'm a Scott Adkins fan. So I kind of always know when he puts out anything like that. You're telling me you never saw Turbulence 3 Heavy Metal, bro?
No, I have not. Sorry, call me
Oh,
crazy.
boy. Yeah, I definitely watched this. All right, let's get into the film. All right, my first thing I want to say about this movie is how long do you think this movie would have been if every scene was played at normal speed?
That's hilarious that you say that. My buddy hated this movie when it came out in the theater because of the slow motion. I'm like, that's a John Woo specialty, man. I love it. I had no problem with it, but I guess maybe he anchored me because he saw it first and he's like, it sucks. Every scene is in slow mo. I want to see it go, 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 go. I'm like, but he does it effectively, in my opinion. In my opinion, it's done well. But it's cheesy. It's machismo, but it's awesome for that factor.
It's overdone.
And 3 hours is the answer.
No, it'd be faster. It'd be 45 minutes. The other way around. I don't know. It's like 3 hours. What am I talking about? That's John Woo Woo. That's extra slow motion. Speaking of John Woo, did you hear the rumor that he went to Prince to do the music for this because he wanted a cover? He wanted him to do "When Doves Fly." That's a joke.
Okay, I was like, no way.
Every movie has to have doves flying.
Well, this is my favorite American John Woo film. I wasn't a big fan of Broken Arrow, and to be honest, I didn't really like his Mission Impossible 2 at the time. I haven't gone back to revisit it, to be honest.
It's not good. It's not good. It's a sore thumb in the Mission Impossible movies because I think the Mission Impossible movies are fucking great, and that one is so tonally different from the rest of the franchise. You go from Brian De Palma to John Woo to J.J. Abrams. It's like all over the place tonally for those first 3. So it's pretty wild. But come on, man. When Doves Fly, joke? Jesus, nothing.
I'm so sorry. I will be. It's not that
You're like serious.
Believe in you.
You're like, makes sense. Makes sense.
Really? Like
that would actually be good.
I was happy that just to find out that like Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert, they were like producers on this. Like I remember when this was coming out and they were attached to it. Like,
so with the Sam Raimi thing, I actually learned that the reason Sam Raimi is an executive producer on this is because the producers of the film were really weary of hiring a Chinese director who didn't really speak English. And so they brought Sam Raimi on to take over the film if there was a language barrier that was happening. So Sam Raimi sat on set as the American director to take over if anything was like going wrong because the Chinese guy couldn't communicate correctly.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
And talk about no faith in someone that directed, like at this point, because at this point there was The Weight of the Killer and Hard Boiled for sure. Now Broken Arrow his entry, or was that the follow-up to this?
I think that's the follow-up.
So this was his entry to the American.
I will look into it while you
I'm still shocked because with the weight and the directorial, like, I mean, those two movies are fantastic. If anybody's not seen The Killer or Hard Boiled, do yourself a favor and check those two films out. I'm not, I got to admit though, I'm not sure how they've aged because it's not something that I've revisited in a long time. The problem with, it's not really a problem, it's a good thing, but being a movie buff, there are certain ones I go back to and revisit over and over and over again, but with so much more content coming out than ever before, you know, you're trying to see the new stuff as well. So certain ones get lost in the mix in the past. So
yeah, so Hard Boiled is 92, then his American debut in 1993 is Hard Target. Then
okay,
3 years later, he makes Broken Arrow. Next year, Face Off, then Blackjack, Mission Impossible 2, Wind Talkers. Did you happen to see his newest movie, Silent Night?
Yes, did not like it. I'm already done.
Either.
There are two movies that came out last year that had no talking, or that was the gimmick, and I'm done with the gimmick. I know one of them you loved. And that was that No One Will Save Me.
No One Will Save You. I love it.
Save you. Yeah, and I'm just like, gimmick done. Give me back some dialogue. But anyway, Nancy Butler. Yeah. Nancy Butler, what'd you think of her? I met her. I was actually, when I was in Toronto, when I first moved to Toronto, I was an extra when she did that Witchblade show. I think it was, we were in the rave scene. We were in the rave scene in the bar. You'll never see me in the thing, but I remember sweating my balls off because we had to pretend dance and pretend we're having a conversation and she's making her way through the crowd. So that was years after this, but I remember I'd already seen this and I was always a fan of this. I had this on Laserdisc. Like, I love this movie. It's crazy how much I've revisited this film because I like batshit crazy action movies, and I think this could be considered batshit crazy.
It is. I would think that it's his most ridiculous film, and funny enough, this is one I've always wanted to revisit. So I was very happy that you picked this one because I've only seen this one time. I saw this when it came out and I never saw it since. So I was always super curious. And the one thing that stuck in my mind, the one thing that never left my brain, the only thing I remember from this film at all is when he's like motorcycle surfing. That's the only, I just remember being like, this is the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen in my life at that time.
You're either going to laugh and hate the movie or laugh and just take it and enjoy it. And sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's weird with me in films. Like in this one, I love it. I accept it. Like I accept all the crazy dialogue. I accept that music that's like that. Like that. Like I like the New Orleans music or whatever. I don't know.
Too.
Yeah.
The like Lethal Weapon guitar riffs that are like every time something happens. I don't know what that is.
I don't know if you want to talk in secrets, but that was good because you brought up the slow-mo as a joke. But the most ridiculous slow-mo part, in my opinion, is when he has to wait to get his job to go out to sea. So he ends up deciding that you see it in his face. He's like, I got to go get that girl because she's going to pay me $217 or whatever to do it. And then she's stuck trying to get out of the boondocks or whatever like that. And then that truck moves and they do like 3 takes of it, and it's just him standing there. The music kicks in, and then he walks in slow motion to the beat. It is machismo on every level, and I love it for it. It's so great.
I mean, you're just saying you can basically take any scene in the film and be like, "That's my favorite slow-mo scene," because every fucking scene in the movie is in slow motion. So, that's the action hero. So this is supposed to be. I think this is supposed to be based on kind of like the Clint Eastwood movies. It's like the drifter that's kind of passing through town, doesn't want to get into it, is talked into it. Is like a hired gunslinger and only takes the job because the right thing needs to be done. And he rides off into the sunset. And as far as she goes, she's fine. She's very strikingly beautiful when you first see her. She is definitely hamming it up a little bit with just kind of the damsel in distress kind of role there. But I like her. I wouldn't say she's given much to do other than like, where's my dad? And no. It's like that's kind of like she's
she's the catalyst to get him into the action and whatnot. To be totally honest, and then it's like they kept her instead of killed her
but
off.
she's not really. I don't know. What do you think about with a movie like this? It's so obvious that she's going to be like the love interest, but she never becomes the love interest.
So I heard that there was a love scene or a sex scene or alluded to sex scene that was in the
what
director's
boyfriend
cut.
or girlfriend ex-nayed that?
I don't know. No, I think it was a timing thing. I think they wanted to get to the action. There was supposedly a lot of studio. Universal was meddling a lot. Well, you told me about that Sam Raimi thing, so it only makes sense. They cut this down, and again, one of those things where I'm a fan of that theatrical version. Not that, like, I believe the Blu-ray that you've got. If it's 99 minutes, I believe it's not the director's cut, but it's closer to the director's cut. It doesn't have like the love scene, but if I'm not mistaken, I read that there was a love sequence between them that was excised out of any sort of available copy right now, unless you find like the director's work print.
Did you watch Hard Target 2?
Yes, I did.
Did it like for this?
Yeah, for this. I watched it last night when you told me that you might get to it, so I figured I would watch that as well. And we'll get to that because I'll add a little bit there too. But I mean, this is interesting because right out of the gate, you get like, it's like the most dangerous game. You're talking about Clint Eastwood, but I think that's the other thing. That's the take of, hunting humans for sport, which is always a great little premise for a movie. I'm a sucker for it. Surviving the Game, I think, was another one of them. Judgment Night became one, or something. Like it's just like, it's a nice, cool little subgenre.
Running Man.
Yeah, exactly. So this is it's fun. I mean, Lance Henriksen hams it up, and oh, I used to know the guy that ended up being in Darkman 2 and 3.
Arnold Vosloo.
Yeah, Arnold Vosloo. I don't know how many times, like, he's got like 5 lines of dialogue, and I think 3 of them are, "You don't want to hurt my feelings," or "I don't want to hurt your feelings." Like, what's with this guy and his feelings? I mean, it was funny the first time, but every line he says, it's like, you wouldn't want to hurt
He's also a professional. So, yeah. He has a lot of feelings for a professional.
The John Woo does do well. I would like to say it's his own thing, but to be honest, I think it comes from a Brian De Palma type thing, where there's shots where Jean-Claude Van Damme, when they're in that bar at the beginning and he meets the girl and he knows that she's going to get mugged because she's been flashing her money around and whatnot, and he's walking out, and instead of just turning around to look at the guys, he kicks the door open a little bit so it tilts and you see the reflection, and you can see. I love that. I was a sucker for that, like that. That's a Brian De Palma-ism, and I guess a John Woo-ism as well, because they both kind of have that style. I love it. It does amplify or enhance the film for me, even though it's cheesy.
Yeah, visual storytelling, always good.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I had mentioned when I went on to Christian's podcast or show, we talked about Stone Cold, which. Lance Henriksen is also the villain. As much as he hams it up in this, he's 10 times more on fucking drugs in Stone Cold. He kind of he knows how to match the energy of a movie that he's in, I guess, because he is so insanely over the top in that. He's ridiculous in this. He's just such a great person to bring in. He's kind of like a Willem Dafoe, where he can just play that nutcase so well.
Growing up, Bruce Campbell and Lance Henriksen, those were like my 2 faves. I just loved the energy that they brought to the roles. And Lance Henriksen started with like, "Hey, there's that guy again. Hey, there's that guy again." Whether he's in like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or Terminator or whatever, and you just sort of would catch him. And then, of course, then I saw Near Dark. And I'm like, oh, he's like a mainstay and then Aliens, and so then he became like a name for me. And as much as we say, Tom motherfucking Atkins, you could say Lance motherfucking Henriksen. Like, I mean, that it just goes hand in hand. He is the man. So many iconic roles. And I would add this one to the list with Stone Cold, Near Dark, and Aliens, for sure. Like, it's great. And I just love his mannerisms. Is so matter of fact. Do you think he's really playing the piano when that sequence, that like montage sequence there? Because if he's not, he's really into it and he's really hamming it up. I know he's an actor, but it's like almost like he's accentuating his piano playing.
I'm always trying to pay attention to that. Like, is he really playing it or isn't he? They do get a close up of his hands and then pan out, and it is him playing for maybe like 3 seconds of it. He could be hitting random keys. We'd have to consult someone who like knows the piano really well to look at that scene and be like, is he playing bullshit there or is he actually playing? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like when you're playing that fast, and because I'm not a musical like piano person, I have no fucking clue. He's selling it well. I'll give him that, right? Like there's some people who can sell playing the guitar or the piano or whatever decently enough. And then there's like the prom band at Saved by the Bell. You got the like this kind of stuff.
yeah.
It's have you ever even touched it? Have you ever seen someone play a guitar?
Well, sometimes it's weird. Sometimes it's the way that they're recording to track. So obviously the track's playing, and yeah, you're right. Like you figure they get some sort of musician in that role, which they typically do. But maybe if it's a really cheap production, maybe they don't care. It's just a random extra. Pretend you're playing the guitar. You're right. They have no clue. But
sure. When it's not the actor, it's like, why did you not get someone who can actually play the guitar at least somewhat? At least so you don't have to go out and get Eddie Van Halen or something. Like you can just get some random guy on the street. Go around LA and you can find 5,000 guys on a street corner that can play fucking guitar. That's not really something that's hard to come by. So for me, I don't know. Of course, it depends on the production, right? Like with an actor, you're not gonna take months of your life. Like for instance, like Ryan Gosling for La La Land, like learned how to play all the piano riffs in the movie, and like when you watch him play any of the shit, even the most complicated shit in the film, that's 100% him playing every single time. But that's a very serious film where you're going for an Academy Award.
You don't think
like,
Lance
you're not doing that in
for Hard Target?
Lance like, I'm really dedicated to this role. I took 6 months of piano lessons for this scene.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. If he did, though, that'd be pretty badass. I would take him really seriously if he was like, for Hard Target, I spent 6 months taking piano lessons for that scene. That'd be pretty wild.
I'm jumping all over, but let's like if we go into some sort of semblance of order, the opening is great because you start right into it. Like I love a movie that starts right in it, kind of like a slasher film might start with the opening kill. This one starts with that opening chase.
Before you get into it, did you think, and did you have to Google if that was Mick Foley from WWF?
I did not, because I don't know anything about WWF.
Okay. And if anybody watches this, I was convinced that was freaking Mick Foley from WWF, Mankind, Cactus Jack. I thought for sure that was him. Yes.
Wow. Well, it's
here, I'll pull up a picture while you talk about the opening.
Well, no, I just like it because, the credits are coming on with that, and this guy's being chased and hunted, and motorcycles are after him, and he, has to scale a fence, and he gets shot by multiple arrows and pulls one out. And I believe some of this has been added since the theatrical release, because the theatrical release, I think, was a tight 85 to 90 minute, and I believe the version that exists now is 99 minutes. And if you do some digging and reading, that's the closest we're going to get to that supposed director's cut that had the love scene and some extra gore. But I think this has been a little bit more souped up than the theatrical version. I believe. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember, because it was definitely it's still a fast-paced movie, even with that extra 10 plus minutes. But when you see him, we learn that after he's been that's who you're thinking, eh?
Does that not look like the guy that they're chasing in the opening?
It sort of does. I didn't have to Google it, though, but yes, it sort of does. Look at that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, this dude, when they were chasing him, I was like, wait, is that fucking Mick Foley, dude? Because it looks so fucked unlike him, but it's not. It's some, like, actual military guy, I guess. Which I was
Which is weird that they got that. Why not just an actor? Because it's funny, because the plot is that they're bringing ex-military guys that supposedly had no family, and then what we learn is that he does have family, and his daughters come looking for him. Nancy Butler's character, and that's what starts the progression of the film and how John Claude gets involved because he was just there to help her find her daddy.
So because we're talking about action movies.
What a prank!
What's up,
everybody? I just meant like his line is like, "I was helping to find her daddy."
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That was his line in the movie. What's your role in this? Like that one detective who is kind of a bitch, and then I guess they give her a hero, like the one that's celebrating her birthday by herself, and whatever. It just seems like
the chick from Candyman.
Yeah, she's upset that she's being asked some sort of like some questions, and she's interrupting her cake eating. When Nancy Butler comes in,
lit candle into a fucking drawer and closes it. That's the best friend in Candyman.
Yeah, I again forgot.
Yeah. Well, I only remembered that because I saw her and I was like, I know this chick. Like, how the hell do I know this chick? And then someone asked me in the comments, like when I said I was watching this, they're like, "Oh, doesn't this have the chick from Candyman?" And I was like, "I don't think so." I was like,
Farewell to the Flesh.
Like, that's. Well, I was thinking, okay, it's obviously not Virginia Madsen. Like, and I was like, this isn't the girl from Farewell to the Flesh, is it?
Wait,
so like I looked and I was like,
why did you think it wasn't Virginia Madsen out of the gate? Why were you not sure it was not her?
Why was I sure that this girl would look nothing like the girl from Candyman? But yeah, no, I was so confused for a minute, and then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, is he talking about someone else in this film? So then it like dawned on me, oh shit, yeah, that is the chick from Candyman. Anyway, no, okay, so because we're talking about action films, one of the things that always makes me laugh when it comes to action films, and we have a lot of tropes and things that happen in horror movies that is just horror movie logic, right? And since we run those kinds of channels and podcasts and whatnot, that's like what we're used to talking about. But then there's a whole nother world of action where you get all of these tropes that we got to discuss. And the one that has always been funny as fuck to me, and I've seen in pretty much every action film ever, and I know why it's done, of course, but it makes me laugh 100% of the time because I'm always looking for it. It's when people are shooting directly at someone. Their guns are pointed directly at them straight.
And they miss.
They're running from them, and the bullets keep hitting the ground around them.
Right by their feet. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think you know how bullets work. When they miss you, they
worse.
just fly by.
Hard Target 2, I was actually laughing at that last night. That exact complaint of yours, it just seemed to stick out like more of a sore thumb. It's in every action film, but for whatever reason, in Hard Target 2, when he's, I think, running or he's on the boat, everything, the bullets are just missing him, and she's supposedly a good shot. You figure that's why she's there.
Oh yeah,
it's like the tough girl. Anyway, yes, it's in every movie, and this movie, like these are supposed to be. Some of these are seasoned hunters. Some of them are people that just paid money because they're bored. With like kind of like a hostile situation in a sense, and they're just paying for the hunt. So you can kind of forgive them, but when it's the actual trained hunters, then it's a little bit more, it's definitely more questionable because they're professionals, supposedly.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't notice, the only way that the villains in this film can hit anybody is with an arrow. All the bullets miss for some reason, but the arrows are fucking like, heat-seeking rockets.
It's just me, and this is definitely a nitpick, but like the arrowheads are fairly large. Yet whenever they show something that's been pierced by them, whether it be the dog tags or the flask at the end, it's like a little hole like this. I'm like, wouldn't it have been like the whole arrowhead went right through it, or into it? I guess it's supposed to have just pierced it. But like when we see these arrows, they're going right through bodies and being stuck through. So if it's stuck on his dog tags, I'm assuming it's more than just a head. But I mean, again, I'm nitpicking, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it should be a massive wound for sure. It shouldn't look like your dick was in it, right? It shouldn't look like this tiny little hole.
A little pinhole.
a little pinprick.
An asshole.
But this is always it's like they don't understand how bullets work at all. Like bullets, when they miss the target, bullets fly for like over a mile before they drop to the ground. So when you shoot a bullet out of a gun. It doesn't go 5 feet and then drop and hit the ground. That's not how this works. Obviously, it's there for an effect to show like it's so close and there's no other way to do that. But for me, if I was making an action movie and I had to do that, like the bullets hitting the ground thing, I don't know why they spark when they hit the ground, because that's also not what would happen.
When they hit the tree, it sparks or whatever like that. You're like, what the fuck is going on here?
And then at the end of the movie, every single bullet blows everything up. Every single bullet blows something up in the whole
thing. They didn't even have gas in it. Well, this movie, there's a lot of gas, but you're right. A car gets hit with one bullet, it explodes.
One thing that they carried over from 1 to 2, which was funny, and you don't get it till the end, but it's something that's kind of memorable from this film, because it's like the cockiness, the arrogance of our main villain here. He has this one-shot handgun that he constantly keeps going to, as opposed to being the dude with like unlimited ammo. He's like, no, I only use one bullet. And they, the main villain in Hard Target 2 also has that gun at the very end of the movie, and I was like, oh, that's a cute little nod.
Who looks both of those bad guys from Hard Target 2, we'll just bring it up maybe in passing, are carbon copies of Lance Henriksen and whatever. Like it looks like they're trying to look for a Lance Henriksen lookalike, but couldn't get him, the actual Lance Henriksen, because he fucking dies in this one, unless this was a prequel or whatever. So, spoiler, he dies, everybody. If you didn't know.
Talking about 1 versus 2, I actually found this to be very funny. I think that like the value of things and the value of life definitely has changed believability wise, because in this movie it takes like $100 to get them to show up and like $10,000 to go out to risk their life. And in the other one, it's $1 million. It's like, whoa. That's just it's so indicative of how we are now, because it's like, hey man, you want a 20? And it's like, what do I have to do?
I don't get out of bed for less than $1 million.
I am getting out of bed for less than $100,000. So
it's true. That's fucking hilarious. And the only other thing is that the second one, I enjoyed more than the first time I watched it, but because it actually kind of is the only really sort of bad part of that. Like there's more than that, but I'm just saying the cheesy part is the whole Vegas stuff. That part looks like a fish out of water from the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is actually fairly well done. Yeah, part 2. And then that sequence that's in Vegas, the acting's bad, the editing's bad, the filming's just machismo. I don't know. Like the budget really shows there, and it kind of finds its stride and just settles into what it actually is when it's playing it well. And it's more believable in a sense, because you're in Thailand there in the in the wilderness, where you'd figure there'd be less eyes on you, instead of being in fucking New Orleans in fucking, whether it be broad daylight or in the middle of the night, where people just seem to like shy away from like the craziness or shut the doors. Like they're running, sometimes they're running through like, the outskirts of the city, like at the beginning, but there's still explosions. Like something blows up that you'd figure would catch the eye of, some people, maybe the authorities or whatnot. Nobody comes. Nobody cares. It's like sort of all under the radar. And then they're chasing people down the fucking streets of New Orleans. Like later, you figure this would draw a little bit of attention to the organization.
So that's something that's something, of course, I gotta bring up is with this movie. This is like one of those films that's set in that, like, it's almost like that RoboCop type of city where crime is so rampant, or like Hobo with a Shotgun or something, where it's like, it's just the cops don't even bother anymore. They're just like, I'm not even gonna come. I don't even care. Because
they've given up.
When he's able to run into the middle, like the second guy who gets chased, he's able to run down the streets of New Orleans. Every guy he jumps onto, one of which, of course, is Ted Raimi, Sam Raimi's brother.
Yeah. I don't have any change, man.
Yeah. It's just such a gross look at like completely ignoring people in need, because it's like, Like, I don't want to be fucking bothered by you homeless people. Why you always got to be getting on me about change? But like, he's chasing him into the middle of the street, fucking blows him away right in the middle of the street.
Mows him down.
Guns ablazing. And then
100 bullets.
Walks up to him, no mask, no trying to like cover his identity, walks over to him, cuts the money off of him, and then just walks right back to the car. Like,
and
these guys don't even care. These guys don't even care. And it's funny because these guys aren't from town. So this isn't like a movie like Roadhouse, right? Where Brad Wesley owns the town and everyone's afraid of him and everyone knows like you don't screw with Brad Wesley. So everyone kind of looks the other way because he owns the cops and he has dirt on everybody or whatever. That's not what this is. These guys travel around the world and do this in different places. So these are like outsiders. Nobody even knows who these guys are. So this is just like old hat. So they look for places like this where crime is so rampant that police officers so don't care. And they're like, I don't know. Is New Orleans known for like so much violence that the cops are like, a guy was shot in the street. We're not even coming.
I mean, I don't know. I've always wanted to go. I've never been. But
not after this.
Yeah, I didn't want to be like hunted for sport. But no, it's crazy because there's no regard for human life. Society does not care. Even the detective, like I said, she's like dragged into it kind of like willy-nilly. Like she doesn't even want to come out. And then when she does show up, she gets fucking shot, dead.
It's funny when they introduce her, the way the office looks and the way she takes her in. I actually, because I don't know, I was taking notes or something. I thought she was going to see. I was like half paying attention to the dialogue in that scene because I was like taking notes from the ridiculousness that came before that. So I actually thought that was a what do you call those people? Where you go to like look for a job and they
like a temp agency.
Yeah, something like that. Like, where people go and they talk to those fucking people. That's what I thought that was. Because I thought like she was looking for, like, where did my dad go? Or did he come in here looking for a job? And then it like when she came out with a gun later, I was like, wait a minute. Why does she? Oh, she's a cop? Like it completely went right past my head. That was so funny.
She had no care. She didn't even want to file the missing persons report because she's like, oh, well, he's a drifter. So, go check out like the places they would hang out and whatnot. And, which she does and gets a little bit more intel. I mean, I like how the movie's presented. Like, I like how she comes to look for her and then finds his shopping cart, or actually the guy that ends up getting hunted down in the middle of New Orleans later. When they introduce each other and he says, I'll keep a lookout for him because I haven't seen him for a bit. And then when she comes back, he comes up to her and goes, I got something to show you. And you're like, whoa, like he comes up like really like aggressively. And he's like, yeah, here's your dad's shopping cart. It's like all of his stuff. It's like, why did they do that? Like, if you watch that scene again, he's like, I got something to show you. And your dad's shopping cart.
Because he's mentally unwell, bro. Have you ever lived out on the streets?
And then, okay, but he seems to be okay. And then Jean-Claude Van Damme, they make him like give him some humanizing moments where they just cut to him. There's a lot of winking and a lot of nods of the heads and whatever, because but it kind of humanizes him and makes him a caring individual. Like I think that's what elevates him above a Seagal or some of the other ones that are kind of forgettable, because he has these moments that work. Even though that haircut's a little ridiculous, I wonder if that was more for the stuntman so they could match the stuntman for the shots later. But I mean, I like him here, and I like how his character is introduced. It's believable. Like I believe him and how he's interjected into this instead of just fucking off saying this is not my responsibility. They make it somewhat believable.
I mean, I would say he's a good person, but the opening definitely does not sell him that way. So he's like this kind of deadbeat drifter who already tried to use an excuse where he like left his money in his coat or something. And the chick is like, you're not doing that shit to me again. Yeah. And so I found this scene to be really fucking funny. he's like, "Oh, I already used that one, huh?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And she's like, "You had a coffee and some kind of food. I think it was like a
Yeah.
pie or
Yeah.
something." That motherfucker throws like 36 cents on the counter.
I think it was a nickel, a dime, and a penny. And this is like 94. We're not talking about like this is like 1955 or
Yeah.
something like that. Like,
No.
it's not Back to the Future. This is
No.
fucking 94.
Yeah. It was so ridiculous.
I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Well, this is what you're getting, honey. Tip included. The tip is
Yeah.
that penny.
Yeah, keep the change. Keep the change. She laughs when he puts it on the desk, so I think she's kind of like, that's all he's got. I guess that's all I'm getting. I don't know, but that definitely did not paint me like someone that was a good guy, because he's stiffing a hard-working waitress. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've come in here, I've already taken advantage of you before. So whose pocket do you think that came out of? Like, this isn't in a time where, you know, you were protected under, like, you know, something where the rules are that, you know, somebody comes in, you've got a certain amount of like, you know, waste or whatever that you can kind of write off. Like, no, back then, dude, if like someone ran out on your table, the waitress paid for it. And so, like, he came in, he ordered whatever, said, "Oh, I forgot money," and he left. And because he's an attractive guy, she was probably like, "Okay, whatever." And then the next time he comes in, he's like, "Can I get a coffee?" And she shouldn't have served him. She should have been like, "Last time you came in, you didn't pay for your fucking food.
Yeah.
Get out, you homeless piece of shit." But then he's like, here's 13 cents for my coffee and food.
You can read it either way. I think you're supposed to think he's down on his luck, and so you can relate to him, and you want better.
Yeah, but so is she.
Or you're a piece of shit for stiffing this waitress. Yeah, I mean, exactly. You could look at it either way, but he redeems himself by saving her. Because what were those guys going to do in broad daylight? Because they look like they're about to rape her.
No, bullshit.
Just mug her?
Bullshit. No. Take that back. So all he does is he gives her 13 cents and then gives them about $250 worth of property damage.
That's true.
So
you're right.
He's indebted once again. He throws him through a fucking window, and she's like, "Guess that's coming out of my paycheck too."
The patrons are just sitting there watching. Like, you're right. Like, you fucking, like, sometimes helping people is just not worth it.
Collateral Damage is probably the funniest thing in all action movies. So one thing I've always found to be really funny in every action movie, and this happens in the Lethal Weapons and the Die Hards and all of them, anytime there's a car chase, there's always like 15 cars that when they get in these accidents, it's like everyone in that car died. Every single person in that car is dead. And they always bring it up like, "Oh, you got $10,000 worth of property damage." And I'm like, what about the human life? What about the people who definitely died?
It got worse over the years. Like, it was bad back then, but like the Bad Boys series is notorious for that. Like, with the firing machine guns down like main streets, zooming down, like no regard for anybody but them themselves. It's crazy. But
I'm trying to find this chick's dad who's already dead. Yeah,
and at the end of the movie, all he gets is $217. Like, it's not like there's some massive payday, and that's just to get on his boat.
Do we know that? She didn't pay. She didn't pay. You know what would have been great? Oh my God. I have a fucking alternate.
She left her wallet. She left her wallet in her other coat.
She slips him like 35 cents on the table and just walks away.
Yeah. Thanks for saving my life. Keep the change.
Here. Sorry, I forgot my wallet in my car that you blew up.
That would have been great. That's a post-credit sequence. That would have been hilarious.
Oh man.
Did you notice the police chief from Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginnings in this? He's the doctor that fakes all the autopsies so that it doesn't look like they're homicides.
I don't think I made the connection, but I would have to look at it. Oh, yes. Yeah. Now that you're saying it, yes. Okay.
It's Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees.
So funny.
Jason Voorhees.
We're not doing it. We're staying on track. We're not doing it. Isn't it funny? These movies always have to have some fat guy who's like taking advantage of people who are down on their luck and are like is a schizoid. He's always got to be overweight, and they've always got to come in and attack him for his weight and cut parts of him off. This is like such a trope in action movies. I've always found this to be so funny.
Next time I cut myself a steak. Or I carve myself a steak. That's when he comes in and he cuts his ear off, which supposedly is more graphic in the director's cut. Here you hear more sound effect. It's more sound effect, which is gross too. And then it's just bleeding and whatever. So what he does is he's sort of the recruiter. He has an in with the homeless. Where I guess they're handing out flyers for some titty bar, like like when you go to Vegas and all those
guys that slap the cards.
Oh, the orgasm clinic. I was just heading there.
I got a discount now.
They got these flyers that they go out, they hand out, and they paint New Orleans as being like a desolate fucking wasteland, like we were saying earlier. Like when you do see people, there's like 10 people in the streets. Like it's the craziest thing. Most of the scenes when you're looking downtown, nobody's there. Just the main characters that are needed in that scene are there. It's crazy. But yeah, so this fat guy that we're talking about, and I'm not body shaming him because that's how they paint him in the fucking picture in the movie. He sits there, he throws people there, and what he does is he's like recruiter. So he knows if someone doesn't have a family or suspects, because I guess he couldn't get somebody, which is the whole mistake that leads into this whole movie, is that he ends up getting the guy at the beginning that looks like the dude from WWF and didn't realize that he did have some family. So his main purpose is to make sure he recruits people that have no ties. That will be a challenge to chase, but they have no family ties. So I guess these guys are not bad after all. They want to make sure that there's no family that will be missing them.
This is actually like, I've watched a lot of action movies in my life, and I think Lance Henriksen might have the best business model that's ever existed. So when Van Damme's character Chance Bordeaux or something like that,
because my mama took one.
Because what?
Because my mama took one. What kind of name is Chance? My mama took one. What movie does that mean? My mama took one. That's from this movie. She goes, "What kind of name is Chance?" My mama took one.
Oh shit, man! I missed some dialogue.
What movie is this from? That
That's
other
funny.
movie with the main character's name's Chance.
It's so funny. Sometimes I watch these fucking movies and I get so into my note taking and like focusing on so many stupid elements that I miss obvious dialogue. That's funny. But one of the things that is really funny about this movie for me is that with the the thorn in the side, the fly in the ointment, kind of character here, like John McClane or somebody who's fucking up their plans. So typically in these movies, the hitman that are hired, right? Like let's say in John Wick, they send out like a bounty, right? And they're like, the bounty is now $1 million to bring me the body of John Wick or whatever. They have such a good business model that the people they have hunting him are paying to hunt him. So the hitmen that they hire, he's like, all right, it's like $75,000 a person to hunt this guy. And the person who kills him doesn't have to pay. Like, what the fuck? I've never in all the movies I've watched, it's always like, if you can bring me this guy, you get paid, $100,000 or whatever. In this one, it's like everyone pays to hunt him. Every hitman that's out for this guy has to pay, and the guy who kills him just is at zero. He doesn't have to pay money.
Yeah, he gets the money. What it's a hostel, but you don't get the money back. Like you pay to kill and hostel, do whatever you want. This is you're paying to hunt the person. But
this is literally the only movie I could think of.
Gets the money back.
Yeah. This is amazing. This is an amazing business model. He's a smart guy. This is a company to invest in.
So when they leave town, what you realize that if you've worked for them, you're pretty much on their hit list. So they do all the dirty work, which in this case is this little side kick. what did you say his name was? The guy from that's in Dark Man
Arnold
2 and 3.
Vosloo.
Yeah, Varsel.
His
So
name is his name is Pick in the movie. That I
Pick.
do
So
remember. Pick.
Pick ends up having to kill like the doctor and kill the fat guy or whatever, which are both brutal. Like he takes a shotgun again midday downtown New Orleans and shotguns him to death and reacts and then just walks away. And then they go kill the doctor in homage to Dario Argento's opera. Yet in movie land, you don't question this. But when you step back 1 second, how does he know that the doctors walked up to the door and looking through the eye hole at that exact moment where he raises the gun and shoots him through the fucking eye hole? Which is, again, it's fantastic.
Because I've seen it done in other movies, the way that they did it in the movie that I don't remember what movie it was, but it does make sense for the way they showed it in the film. There's a light coming through the keyhole. And when not the keyhole, but the peephole, sorry. There's a light coming through it and they wait and they kind of have the gun ready, but it's not in the hole yet. And as soon as the hole goes dark, they shoot.
So they didn't show anything like in the Argento one, like she's literally talking at the door.
Yeah.
And the killer's like showing the and whatever. So it's set up. Perfect. This one, the guy, there's a knock at the door. So he goes like, go. It's like, go get it. Go in.
You have to wait for the perfect moment, but I think it is explainable.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3. Okay, raise the gun. Again, I'm nitpicking because that's what we're doing on this show. But
no, I like it. I'm. If you haven't watched my channel enough, this is all I do. I love breaking down the most inane things for no reason other than to just have a conversation about them. But I think my like evidence to that would be that you could wait for the darkness to come into the light. Because when you look through when you see a peephole from the outside, there's a light coming through it. And when someone looks through it, you can literally see it goes dark. So you can tell when someone's looking through the peephole if you're paying attention.
Okay.
But in that moment, he like raises the gun and does it. I think the guy probably would have got out of the way in time. But one thing, I forgot about Street Fighter. I can't believe I forgot about that. But
I actually don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah,
might be the only Jean-Claude one that I've missed from that time frame.
I definitely saw it in theaters because I was big Street Fighter fan and was big Van Damme fan. So the marriage of the two was definitely a big one for me.
Yeah, I must have seen it on video. I can't imagine missing it, but I'm not. I'm drawing a blank. I'm thinking of Double Dragon is what I'm thinking of.
I love how $100 a day in this movie is a lot of money.
Yeah,
she's like, "I'll give you $100 a day," and he's like, "All right, like that's enough to buy my services to risk my life for." And he's like, "No, I just need $217."
Excuse me 1 second. Do you mind just covering this? I got to be right back. Someone's at my door. I apologize.
Okay. Make sure don't look through the keyhole or the peephole. I keep calling it a keyhole for some reason. So, who's in the comments while Christian's gone? What's going on, everybody? We haven't really been talking to anybody. So, speaking of Raimi, I watched a Ted Raimi movie on Tubi with Ricky Lake and Tracy Lords called Skinner. I have no idea. I love Tracy Lords in movies. That's funny that it has Ricky Lake and Tracy Lords, and it's not a John Waters film. The fact that they're both there is wild. My wife is here. She's just listening because she's like, I got nothing to add to these little horror movies. I'm not a horror movie bean. I'm a horror action. I'm not an action movie bean. I'm a horror movie bean, right? Your literal name is horror bean. You should be here. Make an avocado toast. You still have your head. That's good.
I have my head.
That's good.
I don't know where I put my glasses now. I mean, I can see you, but you're all a blur. You're all.
How about now?
Oh man.
What's going on, Durden? God tier. Everything's God tier with me. That's good. You're right. That movie that Jay's CVD and told Arnold Vosloo to go back to South Africa because he wasn't going to make it in the movies. Oh, He said that. That's funny. Well, what? This is 93, and Mummy came out in what, 96?
99, The Mummy came out.
Oh, that's right. That's right. 99. Yeah, and then the Dark Man movies, and Fossler's had a decent career. I definitely wouldn't say he ever got to like big name status or anything, but The Mummy would be his biggest achievement, I would say. I like him. I like him in this. He's good. He's a memorable face.
I wonder if that's where that hurt my feelings. Maybe he kept saying that, please, Jean-Claude Van Damme, you're hurting my feelings.
That was unscripted. That was literally like in between takes. They were just rolling it, and they're like, "Yeah, I like that. Keep saying that.
I like that line. Every line you say, put that into it."
They're like, "Damn, your acting's really good in this. You're actually crying. Are you? This is the best range I've ever seen from you."
I do like the part. So it all goes to hell. Like, so they kill all the people. I guess they're trying to get out of Dodge, but not without one more hunt, because that's when it's after they kill those guys that they go after the black vet that was helping her, that found the dad's shopping cart and whatever. And then that's when they hunt him through the streets, and I don't got no change and everything like that. He gets killed in the cemetery, but not after killing a few of their men as well. But that's the other thing we're not talking about. It's more than just the two of them and the people that are paying here.
He doesn't get killed in the cemetery. He gets killed in this middle of the street.
Yeah, he gets killed in the street. Sorry, they were in the cemetery, and then he kills them, and then he runs out, and it was in the middle of the streets. This is the one scene that there's actually other people in the streets, and that's where the change comes. And then he gets gunned down, but then everybody disappears by that point. Everybody's gone. Now I know there's gunfire, but everybody's vanished. They don't even show them hiding behind like a mailbox or something like that. Like, they're all gone.
No, the streets are empty. Like when they're doing the car chase and everything, it's like a completely vacant street. It's really weird. You're right. There's nobody.
We're talking about how, like, you think it's just those two guys, but they've got guys that are on motorcycles, remember? So at some scenes, there's like two people on a motorcycle and then a couple of other cars. But in that climax where they're getting away before they go into like the bio or whatever for the climax and whatnot, when they get away, aren't there like, I don't know, 10 motorcyclists? Or am I exaggerating?
Did you call the bayou the bio?
Yeah, that's what I sure did. I sure did.
It was like the bio, like somebody's bio. Like, what are we talking about? He's writing his bio.
Now. But that's it. I'm lying. He actually gets gunned down, surrounded by people, because I'm watching it in the background. It's happening as I'm saying it right now. He gets gunned down, and there's people cowering away from him in that moment. But when they go cut a thing off, I'm going to watch it right now. Okay, I'm lying. You do see some people, but he's out in the open. Like you said, face, no mask, whatever. There are some people hiding behind cars. So I stand corrected, and he cuts the thing off and they leave. But it's really weird. It's still weird.
And I want to say, was it Hard Target 1 or 2? I don't know if you caught this or not. I think it's in part 2. Did you notice during the motorcycle chase in part 2, when the like explosions are happening around him and the stuntman and he has goggles on?
Yeah, the safety goggles. Yeah,
made me laugh so hard. I was just like, where'd those goggles come from?
You could have
pulled them out of his pocket, put them on really quick, and took them off.
Why couldn't they have trimmed like 2-3 frames just to hide that a little bit better? Like they could have easily gotten away from it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you noticed that, because
I noticed it as well.
Also, speaking of Hard Target 2, my favorite part of that film for sure is the chick from Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, who uses the line from Kingpin, "I'm every man's type." When her death, when she's kicked like in between the train, like where she's like smashed through, that's brutal, man.
Yeah.
That, I was like, did a stunt person do that, or was that a dummy? Because that was fucking gnarly.
Yeah, there's some good moments to it. It's not this movie. And yeah. And again, I did get the sequence out. So they hunted that guy down. There were people in the town, so I was wrong with that. Now they're about to kill the big fat guy. They killed the doctor.
Are they almost in the bio?
So they kill this guy, and then I think this is what sparks the cops coming out, and then they get into the big fight, and then go fuck yourself. Like I'm not.
I don't know if I've seen. I don't think I've seen a movie where the cops are less useless than in this movie. The cops literally do nothing. They might as well not even be in the film. They might as well just say this is a lawless town with no police.
The only scene that they really show up in is when they come in, they all get gunned down or shot, and then they're on their own. They're on their own.
Yeah.
But this movie does make a script writing kind of mistake. It's not to say it can't be done, but it's usually frowned down upon where you introduce a character or something in the last act. And this movie does that with his uncle.
Oh my God.
Diabetes.
Wilford Brimley, fucking who has diabetes. Dude,
Yeah.
the fact that they give him like a French accent.
Yeah.
Isn't such a ridiculous. Okay, so I was waiting to get to this, but like the fact they brought in diabetes fucking Wilford Brimley from The Thing, Blair from The Thing, they give him this French accent. He, on a moment's notice, on a fucking dime, dude, he blows his entire house up for this guy.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He is totally committed to whatever.
He's waiting for this moment.
He's waiting for it. He has the whole place rigged. He's just like, if anyone shows up needing help, I am ready to blow this whole fucking joint. He's like, when he says, let's blow this joint, he fucking means it.
I think it was pre-wired. I think that's how into it he was. He was waiting just to blow this up for some reason, that it was already lined with dynamite. He has dynamite. Like, it's ready to go.
This is like in the last Rambo movie, Last Blood, when he makes his house like the fun house from the fucking Home Alone. But like, he's had this rigged for 40 years. Because like, if I ever thought I was going to see Wilford Brimley on horseback with an arrow, like with a bow and arrow, with like riding around with a chick. Okay, can you explain the scene to me where maybe I missed something, because I missed some dialogue here and there. Does he not tell our main girl to like go get the police, and then in the next scene she's just back with him fighting them again? I'm like, I thought you went to go get the cops.
Well, that's so. Are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Like, he's holding the girl that was celebrating her own birthday. So they show up together right after the big guy gets shotgun blasted and whatever. And then they just pull around the corner. She gets out of the car and gets gunned down. And
no. I'm talking about the end with Wilford Brimley when they're both on fucking horseback.
Yes. No, she goes, she says no. Like, she goes towards him. She wants to help him. That's why he makes some sort of joke.
I did miss it because he
makes some sort of crack. Yeah,
started leaving, and I guess I didn't see her come back because I was like, in the next scene, she's just there, and I was like, I thought you went to go get help.
No, he told her to, and she's kind of like, "Fuck that! I want to go help this guy. I want to go save him." So then, he makes some snide comment like, "Okay, I guess we go," and then they're off, and then they're together again. So this is what starts it. The one cop that showed up, the disgruntled cop that didn't want to fill out the missing persons report, gets done, and then killed. The car gets shot. Now it's them being chased, and then they end up going into and it's action from this point all the way to the end of the movie now. And did you read or did you know that when test audience first saw this film, they didn't think Jean-Claude did enough hand-to-hand or kicking, fighting stuff, so they added it back in. They went back and reshot it. So he did gunplay, lots of gunplay, but they were like, this is not Jean-Claude Van Damme. They want kicks. Yeah. So that's why you're getting like the motorcycle guys all of a sudden getting roundhouse kicked or whatnot. And then even Lance Henriksen at the very end, I think, gets beat up because it was all gunplay without that whoops moment. And they put that back in, and then he kicks him a few times and whatever. So there's a lot more kicks added into the climax now to satisfy diehard Van Damme fans.
Speaking of, Van Damme wasn't in Die Hard.
I knew you fucking were going to pick up on that.
Skunk. No, so speaking of kicks, one really impressive moment in part 2 is when Scott Adkins goes up and double kicks the guys on the motorcycle. And that's like a legit kick. Like that's a legit scene of two
That is
guys
an
on a
iconic kick.
motorcycle that he kicks in the head. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Horror Bean.
Iconic kicks. Yeah, that was pretty wild. I was like, damn, dude, that must. How many takes do you think that took for him to get both those freaking actors in the head as they rode past him on a motorcycle?
But I love that scene. I agree. So it's great that you picked that up too. Why is it whenever there's like a moving van or whatever, like I guess they explain it, there's a moving van, but you always notice the random boxes of cardboard. There's always cardboard boxes that someone has to crash into or break. It's like a staple in like an action film or something like that. Well, it happens here too.
Or when they jump onto a train and there's just the one cart that happens to have like a soft landing material in it. Have you ever seen a train go by that has like, yeah, no. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen that.
I've also never jumped onto one either.
I've never jumped onto it, but I've sat at trains and I've watched trains as they've went by, and it's just metal car after metal car after metal car. Jump onto that shit. And jump late. They jump late. If you watch that scene, the train is already almost past when they go to jump. And I'm like, oh no, if you jumped by that point, you would have missed the train completely.
I did a movie that they do that, and then the train's gone and it just hit the tracks and died. But I just had the scene right now where he rides on top of the motorcycle, totally balanced.
Oh my God.
I mean, again, nothing, I guess momentum is what's taking him down the hill at this point because the motor's not going, right? Not like he's locked it in gear. I mean, again, I don't drive motorcycles, so I don't know, but don't you have to be actually revving it or actually holding on to like the gas? Because like he just climbs up, balances, and then jumps and flips over the car, turns around, and then shoots it because it has a leaky gas tank, so we know it's going to blow up. And it blows
Even
up.
Though
lots of explosions here.
Okay, so that scene, of course, makes no sense for so many reasons, but like, I don't know what the biggest one is, but one of the biggest ones, and all of them are big, is that the gas tank's leaking. So he jumps over the car and starts shooting the back of the fucking like SUV, but the bike was in front. So the car hits the bike and takes it that way. So he's just shooting into the back of the SUV. How it hits the bike, I guess the gas is supposed to be on the ground because it's moving forward and there's some gas. I don't know. I don't really exactly know how that works. Because
the bike goes underneath the wheels. They show a quick shot of it going underneath the wheels. So I guess you're supposed to get the idea that he's shooting underneath and hitting
underneath the car. I didn't see it from what the angle he showed me at where he was aiming at it. I didn't see the motorcycle.
It's like one split shot. I just rewatched it where you see the bike go underneath and then he fires it, it blows up. Like it's so quick. And now
so not only did he have to angle the bike to ride on top of it, but he also had to kick it in a way to where it would make sure it went underneath the SUV. Okay, that's
laid plans. You know how they are.
And also hitting a car head on going 50 miles per hour and the car's going 50 miles per hour. Rolling off of it, just hitting the ground and getting right up and shooting.
He rolls right out of it. It's beautiful.
Badass. I'm going to tell you right now. He would not have hit the top of that freaking car. He would have been thrown about, 50 feet before he fucking hit the ground.
It's so great.
They're about to
jump right now. Yeah. And well, there's a bunch of trains with pillow tops on them.
He also, what's funny is doesn't he run back to her?
Yeah, runs back to get her, and then they go to the thing, and then Lance Hendrickson has that one shotgun that you love, the one, and then tries to aim it.
He can't take the shot for some reason, even though he has like a day to take the shot. I don't understand. So like, he's driving the motorcycle out at like 50, 60 miles per hour. That scene goes on for like a good 30 fucking seconds or so. So he should be a mile from her. Yeah. And he just runs right back to her. Like, I'm just going to do a quick mile, a little 4-minute mile.
Pretty much.
He does it in about 30 seconds.
Pretty much. And then they go down and they're by the train tracks in one little muddy area, and Bick or whatever name notices one footprint in the mud and says,
Oh yeah.
we're on the track. It's like instant. They've got a helicopter. Like they could have just found it with the helicopter, which they
Oh,
do
yeah.
later. It's like they had to find this. And this is within the time frame of them jumping on the train to them finding this footprint. They've recruited 4 guys back to hunt him down. That's the thing we're not talking about, the time lapse. Like, where were these guys? Were they the fucking local hotel or the Holiday Inn down the street? Like, weren't these guys like weren't these guys probably back in their homeland right now?
Probably.
Suddenly they're back ready to fight.
Probably paying off the cops since they have no interest in anything in this movie.
And is one of the guys LaFours from Mallrats? I didn't check it out. But there's one guy who's dressed up as one of the hunters, and I'm like, oh shit, is that LaFour? You know who LaFour is in Mallrats, right? I got to see if it's him, but it's crazy.
I know the name.
The security guy.
Mallrats is the security guard. Well,
I don't want to hold up. Yeah, you can look that up. But yes, there's no time whatsoever. Next scene, we see the footprint in the mud, and these guys are coming off a helicopter. So they established that they came via helicopter. But from where? Because they look like they're from another country altogether, and they're there in no time whatsoever. It is him. It's him. David Thorson already answered our question. Awesome.
Oh, okay. Sweet. Yeah.
Good timing. Thanks, David.
Oh, yeah. I remember him now. He's the dude with like the flat top and the beard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then
wait, maybe not. Am I thinking of the fucking dude in Running Man? Is that the same guy, is it?
No, but I mean this guy, he's wearing the bright white colored shirt, and he's got the vest on and everything else. Like, I can't bring it up because it's not on this computer. It's on my TV there. And it's not the best shot of him either. He's just walking up. But I was thinking of it when I was watching it, and I never did check. But yes, supposedly it is
Hard
him.
Target. He's not the dude he's not the bodyguard dude in The Running Man?
He was in Running Man 2 and Predator. So we're both right. That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, he is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was like, wait, isn't that the guy from? Okay. Yes. All right.
Wait.
We're on track.
So
now. We're on track.
David Thorson knows him because this guy's name is Sven Ole Thorson. Is that just a weird coincidence or what?
That is a weird coincidence. He knows everything about all the Thorsons in the world.
I don't know why I found that so funny, but I did.
Great. Yeah, it's very coincidental that it's so similar.
So we have, in this version, which is 99 minutes, we are an hour and 2 minutes into the movie. They're talking about their next steps as he's talking, and Lance Henriksen is talking to the new cronies that are back to hunt this prey and get them to buy into it and everything else. And this is about the time where Van Damme does a little bit of snake punching.
Is
that a
snake
thing?
Charming? Snake charming?
Can you punch and knock a snake out?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. He's like, you need to trust me with your eyes. And she's like, huh? And he's like, close your eyes, dude. I thought he was going to unzip his pants there for a second, but he does pull out a snake. It's just a different snake than I expected. And then he grabs it, and he's just like, and then bites the fucking rattle off. That poor snake.
Poor snake, just the wrong snake at the wrong time. But I love when booby traps happen, and that's like I guess the snake was like it wakes up right away and just in time to bite someone in the face.
Yeah,
and I love how annoyed Lance Henriksen gets at the guy that's been bit by the snake. Like, fucking die quieter almost. And
die quiet. Yeah,
cracks him on his neck.
And it's funny because the people who are with him, they're there paying to be there, and he's like, this is how he treats people who are doing this? I think I'm out. I'm out. I'm not being paid.
At least the Lance Henriksen wannabe. Yeah, the Lance Henriksen wannabe and Hard Target 2 knew that was bad for business. when the people that are paying you start getting killed off, he knows that that's not good for future business. He was a smarter businessman. Lance Henriksen doesn't give a fuck.
No, I don't know how he has a clientele. I'm going to tell you right now, because not only does he make his hitmen pay him, but he also treats them like shit. Like there's no good, it's the worst of both worlds here. You would think you at least have some sway, but no, dude, fucking straight up punches a snake. You got bike surfing, snake punching. It's and Wilford Brimley on a horseback with a freaking bow and arrow with a French accent for some reason. Why he has a French accent is so beyond me. It's like
everybody,
it's not even necessary.
Is that Louisiana? Is that like the second language of Louisiana? It's like they're not Canadian, for fuck's sake.
No, it's supposed to be like, we're both French, so we know each other. Baguette.
Yeah. So there's like a half an hour left in this movie, a half an hour left when his character is introduced. Typically a no-no in movie writing, script writing 101. Usually you have it like earlier scene, which maybe there was in the original version. I don't know. I mean, it works. It's just interesting that we come across them. So like, especially a main character. Sometimes you get like a secondary character or someone that like there's a scene with that might lead it into the final, but this becomes a main character for the climax.
Yeah. He's like, remember me from the rest of the film? No.
Yeah. With a heavy French accent and a lot of moonshine. And but he's got some great lines where I think he loses his accent every time he delivers the punchline. Like he goes, drink, but do not spill. It will kill the grass.
He's not committed to the role like Lance, who took 6 months of piano lessons. He's not as into it. Who decided to cast Wilford Brimley as this character that's just so fucking funny to me. It's like, of all the people you could get to be the sidekick, like, all right, we need an older man, a French man, this and that, and the person who's in the room is like, how about Wilford Brimley? I couldn't even imagine being the person.
Wasn't he also hard to work with or difficult to work with? Like, isn't he notoriously like a pain in the ass? And like, didn't he say that The Thing was one of the worst movies he was in or something like that? Like, it just sounds like he's not the nicest guy. Maybe I'm wrong, everybody, but from what I've read or heard.
He had scheduling conflicts with his diabetes commercials.
Well, what is with, like, if you notice, he's at the moonshine and then he hears these bird calls and then he takes cover and grabs his gun. Wouldn't the bird calls bring him relief for him to realize that it's his nephew or his buddy or whoever the fuck he is? I think it's his nephew. And that because then Jean-Claude Van Damme steps out from behind a tree going, ooh, ooh, like with the hand gestures and making the bird noises. You're like, wow, like that's all crazy. Like, did they plan this? Like, what was the lead up to this moment? If I come to need your help, I'm going to enter by giving you some bird sounds to let your guard down and let you know that I'm coming up to the house.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that a guy who's willing to blow up his own house on a moment's notice, who has just horses waiting to charge on horseback with fucking bow and arrows and charges into battle, is not going to be the most like calm guy. I feel like this dude is literally always on edge. I feel like this guy shoots at any noise he hears.
He's in the middle of fucking nowhere. He's in the middle. He is in the bush, but he's got a full house, moonshine galore, as we mentioned, and like dynamite galore because he's ready to blow his house up at a drop, like we've said, and horses.
Yeah, you can't trust a guy who lives in the bio.
Yeah, or the. I gotta choke the fucking shit out of you.
Man. And the one of the funnier scenes for me is when he grabs the gun in the like final climatic battle and it's like upside down and he's like rifling the fucking thing and then roundhouses the guy at the end.
Well, yeah, I wonder if the roundhouse kick was one of those additions because you're right. There's no point for it. That's John Woo because John Woo is like a ballet of gunplay. That's
Yeah.
where action sequences, like in American action films, it was typically point, shoot, blow
Yeah.
up, and we were like,
Gun
oh, this
fu.
is great. And then
Yeah.
John Woo would do these things where like they would lean down like a stairwell and use the
Yeah.
rail to slide down as they're
Yeah.
firing the guns, and it added
Yeah.
this other element to it. Now we're getting at like guns a-blazing. We're getting that in every movie now because people are they realize that we can elevate it. Like even the John Wick ones, which again, you think I hate the series, but I just said part 2, which is universally loved, I just found boring to me because it felt like I was watching someone play video games. I got to get another try, but I love 1. But those movies are very much like that because it's about gunplay and choreography with it, and I love when they try to do things like that. But yes, it's ridiculous in the upside down gun, but ridiculous, and yet I lapped it up and loved every moment of it. I really love the fact that it's like a set piece. So they go through the forest to get to this warehouse that seems to be the storage for all the Mardi Gras paraphernalia or whatever, like all
Why
the
the fuck
floats or
this
whatever.
isn't like out in the middle of the bayou is beyond me.
Yeah. Again, whether you believe it or not, it's a storage hut that they get to, and the final showdown happens there.
Yeah.
And there's always doves in a John Woo movie. There's always doves or birds that fly out into the scene.
I was gonna say in this one, because he's in America, I don't know if it's like he decided I'm gonna go with like the American
Pigeons?
rat bird, but like we're not going with the nice clean white birds. We're going with fucking just basic pigeons. I found that to be really funny because like in Hard Target 2, there's a lot of doves. Like he's like in bed and there's like a bunch of doves around him.
Like he's fucking sleeping in this room and there's 4 doves in the room. I'm like, okay, that's a little cheese.
He sleeps with them, man.
You and I think exactly alike. That's hilarious.
It's so funny. I'm sitting there going like, why the fuck did they put it in the literal one scene where he's literally asleep? There's so many action scenes in the movie, and they're like, you know what? Put the doves in the scene where he's asleep. I got nothing on the logic of that scene. That's so fucking funny to me. They do use them later. They're on the bridge with him in the end. There's doves there too, but it's so funny to me that he is fucking like he's asleep and he just has like this not a murder because that's crows, but this congregation of doves around him sleeping.
But I guess it's just like symbolic. He loves it, and they fly off typically in slow motion, and then there's gunplay, and it's so funny because the house just blew up. And you're right, because at the end of this, they just walk into the sunset, and they didn't want to do one of those Goonies parts where they find like the rubies or like they do in part 2, or the cash that was offered to these guys or whatever, because I guess there wasn't any. They're literally walking off into the sunset. To what? Like her dad's dead. He gets to go to his job on the sea, I guess. And he's going back to no house. He blew the fucking shit for what? There's no cops that are going to care about this. Like, what is the end? There's no what happened?
I think what would have actually been a better ending, and I'm being honest on this, is like because it's shown that Van Damme's character is like, you know, he's doing construction, right? Like that's what that work is.
Yeah.
So I think because they're kind of all displaced in the end, like it's been too long. He missed the boat. She has nobody left because she finds out her father died. This guy just lost his house and everything he owns. I think it would have been a really like cool thing to have this movie end with them back on site building this guy's house together as a family. I think that would have actually been cool. Like they were together, like he's like dad to them. Like she gets like a new dad and like a new partner, and they're like he's using his skills, and she's got the money to pay for it, and they've got the skills to do it. It would have been like a good, you know what I mean?
Actually, yeah, I'm not actually against that. As crazy because that you're right because it just they walk out and yes, the bad guys are dead, but it doesn't. There's no arc. There's nothing.
Especially if they would have found the money, right? Like, let's say that Lance carries around the money with him, right? and they go and they find like in his car he has
Like a
all the money
Goonies
that
ending.
he was going to give to them because he carries it around in cash. If
Sacre
they could have
bleu.
found, yeah, if they could have found the money, and then we could have saw like an end scene, because like that's what I like about the ending of Hard Target 2 is that he buys this like river house, which is literally a house on the river, and he ends up with the girl, and they have this like training academy where he's teaching them how to kill their best friends. And
well, I also like
I think you missed that joke because that was fun.
I did because I looked at the comment that popped in. I apologize.
I said he's training all those kids at the end of the movie on how to kill their best friends. He's like, all right, and now you hit them so hard they don't ever get up.
Well, he was redeemed by the wife of the guy writing to him and saying it wasn't your fault and don't hold yourself responsible for it.
Who's hotter, the girl in the first one, or the second one? Who's good? Who's better for you?
Way back in the day, I would have definitely said Nancy Butler, but now in looking back, I think the Thai girl in part 2.
Yeah, she's definitely really cute. What's her name? Ta?
I'm not too sure.
Ta, isn't it? THA? Yeah. I think is what it is. Ta.
Well, what I liked about that one too is they show Scott Adkins, like you could tell they were just shooting off the cuff. Like they were going downtown, like downtown area, and he jumps onto that train just for the end credits. It's all just him around town, and I love it. It was just like behind the scenes shit, but he stays in character. He's ordering noodles, eating noodles, and they're just filming.
Everyone's looking at the camera.
Yeah. It was actually
you can tell that they're just filming.
Yeah, it was a kind of a cool way to end it after that ending with the boat because he's decided to stay. So I don't know. Oh,
because Scott Adkins to me is like, okay, if you were to take the modern people, right, and you were to compare them to the past, Scott Adkins is our Van Damme of this generation, right? Like,
it's funny how many people don't know him. And you're right. Sure. And he was a Van Damme fan. I read an article with him when I started saying, hey, this guy's in enough movies that I'm enjoying. And there's like 2 directors that seem to be reoccurring and keep using them over and over again. And I was enjoying their movies as well. And I'm like, hey, like this is kind of like a team. And these are all being made on the cheap, but they had better action than we were getting from some of these mainstream ones. I would rather watch the Scott Action B movies than like these over like the Fast and the Furious ones that we were joking about the last time and everything else. Like they just feel more like traditional action movies to me.
Yeah.
I appreciate them more.
I've always wanted to see, and I think he'd be perfect for like a television series. If they were to ever make a live action Batman television series, I think Scott Adkins would be a really cool. He actually auditioned for Batman. And it would be really cool to actually see someone who knows how to fight, who has the build, who has the look. I know a lot of people don't think his acting is very good. I actually like his acting in the Undisputed films. I actually buy his Russian accent and all of that stuff. If you guys haven't seen the Boyka trilogy from the Undisputed franchise, it's part 2, 3, and 4. I highly recommend them. You can skip the first one, to be completely honest. It's fine, but 2, 3, and 4 are fucking great. And
the
that's
Debt
some
Collector
of my favorite.
1 and 2. Debt Collector 1 and 2, Avengement is another one. I there's one that takes place in a bar. I don't know if that's Avengement or not. But I like the Debt Collector and the Debt Collectors. I thought those were fun movies.
Accident Man.
Yeah, Accident Man.
Those are good. Yeah, I definitely recommend. I'm a big fan of his. And then as far as
Ninja Warrior.
I know that it doesn't, unfortunately. It's not at the same caliber. And I feel like these are kind of knockoffs because, like, has Scott Adkins had a career like Van Damme's? No. Has he made, like, super iconic movies that we grew up on? Now, we're not in that generation. So maybe people who are 10, 15 right now are big Adkins fans like we were Van Damme fans. And in 20 years from now, they're going to be like, oh, remember all the Adkins movies? But for comparison, if I was to also take other people, you know, even though they have not made anywhere near the level of good films, our modern Arnold, is The Rock. I mean, that's kind of undisputable to me. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
That is our Arnold now. But the
Who's Vin
problem is
Diesel?
that the problem is that
These are
The
Seagal.
Rock makes all of these like cute PG-13 fun family type films, and Arnold, probably because it was the 80s, was making these really badass R-rated films. And I just wish that The Rock would do the same. I really wish that he would just drop the, like, how much fucking money do you need? You've gotten enough at this point. I know that he's making that like wrestling movie. He's making some serious like movie for once, an R-rated wrestling film with Benny Safdie is directing it. So that actually looks like it has a lot of promise. But if you've ever seen some really cool Rock movies, like he made The Rundown, I actually love Doom. I'm like a really big fan of that movie. I actually think that's
I like The Rundown
movie.
actually. I remember.
Did you see Doom with Carl Urban and The Rock?
No.
The video game adaptation Doom. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's a really cool movie. And then probably my favorite Rock movie that no one ever talks about is Pain and Gain with Mark Wahlberg. That movie is funny as hell. That is probably my favorite character The Rock has ever played in a film. He is so funny in that film. And I just really wish we could get, I don't know, who's the modern action hero that's like young? Because Tom Cruise is still around. He's still doing his thing. We still get pretty rad Mission Impossible movies, but he's in his 60s. And most of the action heroes now, they're all in like Marvel movies, right? You got the Chris Hemsworths and all that stuff.
Or you got Keanu in the John Wick.
Keanu, who's like almost 60 now. So like, who's the like 30-year-old action hero who's making all the big action movies that like green lights? Because like Chris Hemsworth, I really like the Extraction movies. The second Extraction movie particularly, I thought was really damn good. I just wish we could start getting these like what happened to the Arnolds and the Stallones. Like, I would love to get back to a time when we got a Terminator and we got a freaking, even if you're going to do the silly stuff, I mean, obviously Arnold did Kindergarten Cop and he did Junior and he did Last Action Hero.
Jason Statham as well now too.
And
they're all older. They're older.
He's older now too. Yeah,
everybody's older. So like I think it's almost like the distinguished factor or whatever. I don't know if they just don't know if it's going to be bankable. Because when I think of younger, like even Scott Adkins, like he's got to be in his 40s now, right? Like,
he's almost 50. Yeah, he's like 48.
Yeah,
I think is how old he is. Yeah, you got to be bankable and bangable. That's that's how that works. I don't know. Like
in high school,
I would love to see. You doubt it. I would. I'm trying to think of like who would be a really good action hero. You know who surprised me as like a good? There was a lot of like comedians turned action kind of guys out of nowhere that really surprised me and pulled it off pretty well, right? Like Chris Pratt obviously went from like The Office to being Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy,
and every cartoon character known to man.
And then John Krasinski, he like was like Mr. Funny Guy from like Parks and Rec. Is that the show he was on?
I guess Ryan Reynolds, but they're kind of like Ryan Reynolds or Ryan Gosling, like. But it's not the same. It's like a glossy, it's hodgepodge, like comedy action, like family movie or something like that. Like it's not just straight balls to the wall action anymore, it seems.
Henry Cavill would be a fantastic action hero today. In fact, he was the person I was hoping to be James Bond. I think he is perfect for that. And now with Aaron Taylor Johnson being pegged for it, I think he'd be great too. So I'm fine with all of that. I don't know. I look at all of the action people today and I just feel like the action hero is dead as of right now. I don't feel like all of the action stars that we have are all making like B movies, like a Scott Adkins, or like any of the Asian like actors, like Iko from the Raid movies, or Tony Jaa, or any of those guys. They're starting to get that. Well, Iko's still young. Yan from the Raid. You watched the Raid, right? The Raid, yes. 1 and 2.
Yeah. You made me.
They've made quite a few, and those are like really where the good action is now. Is if you go into like either Indonesia or Thailand, or like a lot of them are like Asian. Like they've always been making great action films, but if you want to watch like really cool stuff today, unfortunately you have to, you don't get a lot of really great American action movies outside of like the superhero stuff. And that's a shame. I want to get back to the everyman taking on.
Well, those are one and done. Like Nobody, that was fun. But Upgrade, again, he was older too.
Upgrade was awesome.
Do you think, and I know you didn't want to get into this realm, but do you think it's because of quote unquote toxic masculinity or whatever, and they don't think we could return back to just having like a muscle bound guy go and kick some ass and without it being more balanced?
I don't think so, because I don't think that you don't have to do it that way, right? Like you don't have to make the girl the prize of the movie, right? Like in older action movies, the girl was just there to be the the prize in the end. Like if you can beat the bad guys, you can bang me, kind of thing. And it's like you don't have to do that anymore, right?
Except you don't. Kingsman.
You can just have the guy go in, because I like a lot of revenge stuff, and I don't think there's anything like toxic masculine. I don't think that applies to anything like Die Hard. That does not scream toxic masculinity to me in the slightest. So like,
no, neither.
Back I just to like wondered. A Die Hard, it would be, that's my ideal, is getting back to that every man goes up. But I don't know, like there's these really cool action movies that come out. Like Monkey Man was really cool. I really like Dev Patel's Monkey Man. I thought that was a really good time. Obviously the John Wick movies I fucking adore. But that's like one of the rare franchises right now. That's the big action franchise in America. I'd love to see an Extraction 3. But there's certain movies that come out and they're gems, and a lot of people don't like them. One that always blew me away, I actually think it's one of the better action movies I've ever seen in my life, and I loved it, and everyone hated it, and I was blown away by that, was Hardcore Henry. I don't think that people like the first person gimmick thing, but I thought the action sequence in that were phenomenal. I was blown away by how the hell they did it, especially at the end. I've only seen it once, and I'd love to revisit it. That's it. Hardcore Henry, our next movie. I'm picking it. Hardcore Henry.
Cool.
Because I have been wanting to rewatch it forever, and this is going to be a great opportunity to do it. But there's this scene at the end when the guy like levitates bodies in the sky, and he's like running across them on a rooftop. Like they're up on like a skyscraper or something. This is how my memory of it was, but like there's bodies like floating in the air, and he's like running across them as he's like kicking people. And I was like, because it's all done from the perspective of the stunt man or whoever the fuck. And I just remember being absolutely blown away while watching it. And then everybody was like, this movie's awful. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? What? I came out of that like, this is like the coolest freaking action movie I've seen in forever. And everyone hated it. But we got some Hardcore Henry is cool, and a great first person shooter.
Did you ever see Shoot 'Em Up?
Yeah, that was like mid 2000s. Good Bad Flicks does a really good breakdown of that if you haven't seen it, because that was kind of the last gasp right there, because you got Running Scared with Paul Walker, which is a really cool like action thriller. The over the top like gun movies, like The Big Hit, remember that, with Mark Wahlberg when he's trying to return King Kong to the video store and John Leguizamo's like coming after him? Do you remember this movie? The whole movie is like It's called The Big Hit. I only saw it once. Back
Oh yeah,
when it
yeah,
came
with Lou Diamond Phillips. I think you mentioned his name. Yeah. I saw it in the theater.
No, with Mark Wahlberg. Is Lou Diamond Phillips? I don't know. Big
Wait,
Hit is
what
the
am I
one
thinking
where
of?
he's trying to return a cassette. He's trying to return King Kong to the video store on time, and he's like killing people on the way there. You know, it was actually a really good.
Yeah, Lou Diamond Phillips is in it too.
Oh,
So
he's also in it.
yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
actually was a really fun movie as well, recently, action wise, was the Frank Grillo movie where he keeps reliving the same day over and over, like Groundhog Day, and it's an action film, and he has to remember all of the like attacks as they're coming at him, and he keeps getting killed, and he has to keep trying to redo the fight.
That's
He's a
an
great
example.
actor,
Frank
too.
Grillo. When I saw him, see, a lot of people don't like the Purge series, which surprises me. I actually love Purge 2 and 3.
Yeah, I really,
And
I don't. The first one's okay, but the second and third are great. Yeah,
because of him. I think he's
Yeah.
great, and he
Yeah.
could be a great action star. I mean, I know he was in the Marvel universe as well, but I think he could just be his own action star.
Well, the unfortunate thing with Grillo, which is it's kind of like inspiring, but he didn't even become popular until he was almost 50.
Yeah.
So like
That's it.
he
He's older
really didn't
too,
even
yeah.
get on the scene until his like 40s. And it wasn't until he was in like Captain America Winter Soldier where he was like in his mid 40s, and then he started getting these roles as like an action guy, but he was like 50 years old by the time he was cast in his first like role where he was like the main guy. So he, unfortunately, as cool as he is, and I really do like him,
He's older too. Yeah,
he's
you're
got
right.
to be almost 60 by now. So it's like,
Crazy.
you know, all the big action guys now, Jason Statham, who of course made the hilariously, insanely over the top Crank movies. Those are the most insane films. Like Crank is nuts. Crank is so insane. If you haven't seen the Crank movies,
Crank 1 and 2 I've seen. Yeah. I don't know if there's any more.
there's only two, but they're so crazy.
What let's wrap this up.
Yeah, we got to wrap
what
it up.
What do you think about the guy? What do you think about the whoops where he unscrews the grenade fuse or whatever, and then it catches and blows up?
This is one of the dumbest scenes in the history of film. It's funny, of course. He has enough time to throw that thing away from him, go get a coffee, come back and watch it explode. But he instead decides to dismantle a grenade instead of just throwing it away from him. Just instead of throwing it, which would take 1 second, he decides to unscrew the thing. Is that even possible? Is that a real thing? Can you unscrew?
I don't know.
And then it literally says fuse on it. Okay. So one of my favorite comedies of all time, this will probably be surprising to you. One of my top 10 favorite comedies of all time. I have a big, huge freaking framed poster of this on my wall. Is Ernest Scared Stupid. It's been a top 10. I watch it all the time. I think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. In the movie, there's a scene where he's in a trash truck and the trash compactor is closing on him, and he's trying to figure out how to get it to stop. And he finally has a remote control that controls the thing, and he pulls the batteries out at the last second, which stops it. And he has it over here, and he has this over here, and then he's like laughing, like ha ha ha! I figured that out. But then the electricity from the batteries starts connecting to it from across the screen, and then crash. This is literally the same scene, except for it's not in an Ernest movie. It's in a serious action film. He pulls it out, and he's like, and then it sparks and still blows it out. It's so stupid. Why would you not throw that thing? Why would you not? I really wish he would have kept it in his pants, but I usually say that typically when I meet Christian. That's the same thing I said when I met him. And then he exploded all over me, just like this.
And now it's payback.
He sits there. Yeah. He's just like intricately working with a grenade as it's like going off in his face. Who has the like? Remember, who has the steady hands to
this is after
dismantle a grenade?
This is after he's loading his gun. He's been beaten up.
Yeah.
And Jean-Claude
runs at him
when they do the run where the arms go like this, and then jumps up and fucking kicks him in the stomach as he's firing. And you see the gun go off. Like you figure Jean-Claude's been shot at this point, but he doesn't. And they still go mano to mano. And then he does the thing where he drops down drops a grenade down. You have to give that final fight a little bit of hurrah, but it is ridiculous. I laughed, but I could see people that were really wanting something to be a little bit more serious.
They lived up to the title.
Yeah, he was a
hard target. He never gets shot.
And it's funny, that's just the name of this movie, but they actually reference themselves as hard targets in part 2.
Oh, sure, because at least the thing I do like about Hard Target 2 more than this one is that our main character is the one being hunted.
From the pretty much from the get-go. Like, I mean, that
right.
like we've been introduced before, but I agree. And it's in the backwoods of in Bangkok.
Where crime could be happening. Although I love how they have like a full-blown shootout in front of the military that's just standing there. They're like, nothing to see here.
These rubies will shut you up.
Yeah. Here, just take these. No, but that's the soldiers on the other side.
Yeah, true.
So it's basically like the North Korea, South Korea border, right? Where they're just sitting in front of each other. And he's just having a full-on like gunfight. And there's just you can literally see the military with guns in the background just standing there like, as long as it doesn't happen 10 feet closer, they can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter, I guess, when you're on that bridge. So I found that to be really funny. I do also find really funny that he ends up on the wrong side of the bridge.
Yeah.
He doesn't climb up the other side where he's supposed to go.
He doesn't know. I thought that made it kind of human. But no, part 1's a total recommend to me. Part 2 is if you're a fan of these movies,
if you're a big fan of
check it out. Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
How do you like the line? How do you like the line of like, why did you get involved? And he says, poor people get bored too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Good. Yeah. I like that. It's kind of like I had nothing better to do. I got nothing else. So I decided to take down your whole organization.
and it's fun because I think they make it work. But the only thing is, you're right. Like while the credits end, having them rebuild the house or them coming across the money, like it literally is them walking out of that Mardi Gras storage facility and the titles roll and it goes.
They might as well just walked right into the cops' cars. Just here, walk out like hands behind them. Go ahead, cuff me. There's going to be no way I can prove my innocence here. So ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, all right. I think that's that. Next time we will be talking about Hardcore Henry. Cool. I don't know when that will be. We were not meaning to do this every week. I don't know how the hell we did this episode so fast. This is 1 week later. This was supposed to be a monthly show, but for some reason, this came out in 1 week. So I don't know. It could be in a week. It could be in 3. It could be never again. It'll be dependent. Enough downvotes, and I'll definitely do it.
Yeah, that Christian guy, get them the fuck off the screen. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, they'll live. You guys ready to go? Yes. All right, perfect. All right, so we're off to the dentist, and thank you to Christian for hanging out, talking all things Hard Target action movies. This podcast, this ain't no podcast. This is two dipshits sitting here live, just winging it. There will be no editing. This must be the easiest show you've ever been on.
I love it. I love it.
I bet. This is it. We get off and it's you're done. You get to go back to your life. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. Perfect. Done and done.
I can't imagine what you guys do. Okay. All right. My kids pulling me. All right.
Sorry, guys.
Later. All right. Bye, guys.